Hey, hello, Rise. Happy Black History Month. We are in day two. We celebrate it all year long, but we are day two, and we're really excited to have lunch with Gina and Akil Bello. Wave, Akil, say
Good morning.
hi.
Good
So,
afternoon.
Akil Bello is a brother that I've known for a very long time. He comes to us as uh, a wordsmith. He's brilliant. He comes to us as a wordsmith. He comes to us as a master test taker. I can give you that title. He also teaches folks how to do their best on the test. And what test am I talking about? I'm talking about the college entrance exam in particular. Right. And we're going to talk about to test or not to test, the big conversation around testing. I can speak from personal experience. My daughter has just got into her first choice ED college. Hello. And so what we have been waiting for, I guess, well, I don't want to say since kindergarten, but we really start to think about it middle school, high school for sure. That SAT, that ACT, that's the key into that next level of education. So I just went through it, and it's really not all that bad. It's a little stressful, but there's a lot of talk about what's the relevance of it. So Akil is going to talk with us about that today. How's that sound, Akil?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So we have some questions. We're going to keep it brief. So we talked about that. Colleges opting out. One of the colleges that we visited was like, we do not do the test because we don't think it's equitable. They weren't talking about financially, although it probably ends up being that way because how you prepare for the test, what resources you're given to prepare for the test, how long you've been preparing for the test can, depending on what your socioeconomic income is like, it could determine a lot. So they don't do it for equity purposes. What are your thoughts on colleges opting in or out?
I think test optional is a very interesting movement. I think that there's a number of factors that influence whether they choose to opt in or not. The unfortunate part is the language around test optional is problematic. I think many colleges are looking at it from a number of lenses. One is the selfish lens. What does this do to my applications? What does this do to my rankings? What does this do to the quality of student that arrives on campus? Right? And those are very significantly different questions. The research shows that the contribution of the SAT to the predictive validity, the prediction of success of students, is actually not that huge. So if you take GPA by itself, I didn't look up the numbers, so I might get them wrong. But if you take GPA by itself, let's say we predict at a 53% rate. If you add test scores to that, prediction may go up to 54, 55, 56.
Okay.
So is the weight of the test equal to the value it contributes to admissions decisions? And more schools are saying no. When you add to that, taking away the test signals that you are looking more broadly at students and things of that nature, as more and more colleges are saying, hey, maybe the signaling is of more value to us and the diversity it may bring is of more value to us than the incremental added value of predictive validity.
Yeah, so, that's interesting. I mean, that was my daughter's experience. She, blowing it out of the water academically, but that she struggled with the test. And I'm glad that her first choice school, who had testing scores, the average that gets in on getting his acceptance was not much, but it was incrementally higher than hers. So how did that weigh out? Well, clearly they looked at the whole student, which was, we were happy about that.
Right.
Yeah. So talk about the different tests, because she chose to take the ACT and not the SAT. That was not the test for her. What's the difference between the two?
The same as the difference between Burger King and McDonald's.
Okay.
It is exactly like you're talking about Coke, right. Burger King, McDonald's, Twizzlers, and Red Vines. Bell and Snow White. It's different flavors of the same.
Not the same fries, though. Not the same fries. But I hear what you're saying. But that's the difference. That's it, right?
McDonald's and Burger King, they have food, but it ain't the same, right? I don't eat Burger King fries. So,
right.
And I think the SAT and the ACT are very much the same. That the ingredients are very, very similar, the final product feels a little different, although there's a lot of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
For a family making a choice, the only legitimate way to make that choice is to take a full-length practice test of both.
Right.
That's the only legitimate way. I could give you lots of minutia that's different. ACT is faster. SAT gives you more time per question, blah, blah, blah. ACT has a section they call science. Like all of these minor details, essentially over my 30 years, they're all irrelevant when it comes down to, is little Johnny gonna do better on the SAT or ACT? The only thing that matters is a full-length test, seeing how the performance actually plays out.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. It does take the practice test to be able to determine that and to see how you feel. And you know, my daughter just felt better with the ACT. So should parents and students, so I got another quick story. As she's preparing the beginning of her senior year, you know, like we're scheduling these exams. And I'm watching her study habits. She has a test, you know, prep situation going on, but I don't know if she's studying as hard as I think she should be. You know, like I don't see that book out. I don't see as many practice tests happening. And I say to her, listen, you know, I think maybe can you be doing a little bit more? And she said, hey, listen, Mom, you can't want this more for me than I want it for myself. I got this. And so after that, she made my life very easy. So should parents and students be obsessing over these exams, or kind of just, you know, understanding that you're preparing as much as you can for it and just go with the flow? I mean,
I think parents and students shouldn't obsess over anything. Yeah. You should focus, you should prepare, you should be aware of the need and the intent and all of those sort of things and the intensity with which you can prepare, but obsessing is problematic. So the question is, should you prepare for and take these exams? Absolutely. You should take the exams because many schools, still the majority of colleges, require the exams. Okay, so that's currently the state of college admissions right now. The majority of colleges require an admissions test. Mm-hmm. Even though schools like University of Chicago went test optional last year, they still anticipate 70% of their students submitting scores. So the vast majority of the students at test optional schools are still sending scores.
But are they looking at it though? Are they really looking at it?
If you send it, they are looking at it.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be so even with the schools that are optional, right? You have the schools that are test optional, and test optional means a whole bunch of different things. There's Hampshire College, which says if you send, like, we ain't looking at scores if you send them.
Right, exactly.
Probably send somebody to your house to hit you in the head and say, don't send us the scores. There is only one college in the country that actually takes that approach. Every other college is optional, meaning we're giving you more options. At NYU, they will allow you to send other tests beside the SAT and the ACT, but you are sending tests. Mm-hmm. Just a question of which ones. Mm-hmm. So the way that it's used is very different. Also, many schools that are test optional for admissions still use the test for merit aid. So you may not get away with it if you need money. Gotcha. So still, the vast majority of students cannot put together a full college list with all the schools saying we don't need the test for either admissions or money.
Right.
So you gotta take the test.
Then
if you're going to take the test, you should submit your best possible score, because the people you are competing against, especially in the highly selective colleges, have been investing time, money, and resources in submitting their best possible score. You can't submit any old score and compete with people who are spending a year or two to send their best possible score. Mm-hmm. And that's the big distinction between those with resources and those without. Those without resources tend to send a score. Those with resources tend to send the best possible score after long-term intensive preparation.
Yeah, she took it 3 times. And as it was suggested, we actually saw it happening. You don't necessarily do better between the second time you take the test and the third time you take the test. In fact, I think she may have gone even a point under. So talk a little bit about that, like that, the statistics of actually, you know, taking the test 3 times and that third time is going to be the best score.
So taking the test multiple times is a meaningless metric. Mm-hmm. If I take it, because what it usually measures is between your first official, your second official, third official. But what if you did no practice between first and second, but a ton of practice between second and third? So it's all a question of how much preparation you do in between. Retaking the test with no preparation, right? Then yes, first to second will probably see the biggest gain because familiarity alone, right? Second to third and afterwards, it's going to start to go down if you're doing no prep because the benefit of familiarity has started to go away. But if you're putting prep in between any of those things, right? Like, it's kind of like anything. If you hire a coach to make you a better basketball player, you're going to be a better basketball player rather than trying to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
So
like
then, like you said, it does come down to resources. It does come down to whether you're really doing the work, you know, in preparation. And there are some schools that are test optional, but the vast majority will require a test. So either way, the test, most of us are going to have to take the test. Most of our kids are going to have to take the test.
Right. Not going to have to, should.
Should. That's right, should. So talk to us a little bit about this documentary that you are discussing on a panel coming up soon. Tell us about this documentary and why we should see it.
So a few years ago, maybe it's 2014, a friend of mine introduced me to some filmmakers. This filmmaker out of California, his kid he was basically in your situation. Child has just went through the college admissions process. He, I guess, was a professional filmmaker and said, hey, this process is crazy. I'm going to do a documentary on the SAT. So next thing I know, he starts interviewing experts around the country. I was one of the people he asked to interview for the documentary. It's called The Test and the Art of Thinking. It's a really...
Say that again, The Test and the...
Art of Thinking.
It sounds like a juxtaposition there.
Kind of, yes. There's a lot of in play there. I find it an interesting exploration of the influence of the SAT specifically, but these college admissions exams on the higher ed landscape. There are so many ways in which the test influences colleges that I was unaware of, even after 20 odd years in the business, that I was floored. So just as sort of a social impact of this one exam, it's an interesting flick to see. It's like bond ratings for colleges are influenced by SAT scores.
Wow. Yeah,
like what? Huh? How?
So you know, so here's the other part of it. So the industry itself of test taking is huge. It's huge, right? So this whole idea of test optional probably will not take off in a really in a profound way because the industry is so huge. I mean, like, there's too much money rolling through it.
I mean, that's part of it, right? There are a lot of things that are separate from admissions and students that are tied to these tests. And so it will be a slow roll for, I mean, it's not going to be 5 years and all colleges suddenly shrug and be like, no, nobody sent us SAT scores, right? But there's a chance that 10, 15, 20 years out, all the colleges will put SAT scores and ACT scores in the same bucket that they put extracurricular activities, which I think is a more appropriate place for it in this landscape. I think the problem with the test is that their use and value may outweigh the information they give. And the conflict they cause, not conflict even, the kerfuffle caused by the test. There's just a whole lot of stuff caused by the test that are far beyond its value in the admissions process. And I think that's the problem here, is that you can't go SAT, GPA and put them on the same scale.
Yeah, you know, to the point of the kerfuffle, that was my daughter's sentiment. Exactly. You know, all of these years I've been grinding and working really hard, and so it just comes down to this test. I think she was just angry at the test more so than, you know, like kind of obstinate with it. Why?
Yes.
Why? You know, I've been working hard. It can't come down to one test. So tell us about the panel that you're going to be on. We want to invite folks to come and see this documentary. It's coming up this weekend, next weekend in Long Island, right? So tell us a little bit more about it. And we will include information to register to go see it with Akil in our little description box. And then also consider maybe your school showing it. Oh, that would be kind of cool, right?
So the panel's interesting. So there's been a wrinkle. I just realized I'm speaking at a conference in Denver about test optional at the University of Denver. I may end up flying out a day early and not be on that panel.
Oh, so you got other things to do.
Things come up.
Are you in the documentary? Will we see you in the documentary?
Absolutely in the documentary.
Okay, so like, well, you'll see me first. Okay, all right. All right.
So, kind of cool. But so there's Parents League, the Parents League, I believe it's called. Oh, I should have looked that up. The Parents League, I want to say is the name, of Port Washington, is doing a showing and a panel afterward, and a panel just discussing the film. I think the film is really interesting to see, but the discussion afterward is more important.
Yes, yes.
Especially for students, if you do see it, like the discussion afterwards is hugely important, just in terms of the impact of it, how it affects you personally, what it means to you. You know, the weight of the test varies significantly, and without discussion, I think especially students may take away a little bit of an impression that's not quite right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because depending on the level of selectivity of the school that you're looking at, the weight of the test varies hugely.
Yes.
There are some schools where they're just asking for a score because they want one, and they're not weighing it so much.
That was what Elon was told when the school, the representative from the school that she got into, which I'm so proud of, but I'm going to restrain myself. I'm not going to just shout it out there. I'm not on their payroll. Actually, I'm paying them. Anyway, but she's in a great school. And she asked, hey, listen, she stood up, was courageous enough to ask this admissions person during the admissions process, my GPA scores are here, my test scores are kind of here, doesn't matter. And the woman said, you know what, that will not be the only reason why you don't get into this school. It will not be the only reason. So, and it was proof is in the pudding. She got in with great GPA, test scores. So parents, don't obsess, it's not worth it.
Let me also touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Parents, be careful. I've seen far too many take that message too far. Notice Gina got her pretty close as to how just the way the test scores were, right? Like, you know, like GPA here, test score there.
Yeah, right.
It's got to be in the neighborhood of.
Yeah, it was in the neighborhood. I agree with you. Thank you for that disclaimer.
Right, you can't be, you know, they want test scores in New York and you live in California. That's a whole different ballgame. They want test scores in New York and you are in New Jersey. You have to be at least in the neighborhood, so the school has some indication. Like, you know, most schools weigh multiple factors. Some schools do have cutoffs, right? Especially systems like CUNY, they have cutoffs. They have, you know, they have placement issues where if you get a certain test scores, you're automatically placed in remedial classes. So different schools handle tests in different ways. So everyone is encouraged to submit their best scores if they're submitting scores at all, right? And making sure that you're aware of what best means in context of the schools you're looking at. At University of Chicago, best means perfect. Like the average scores at Chicago were like 790 and 790. So like everybody was sending a perfect score. So if you got a 690, which is like the 90th percentile nationally, your score is bad. It's like, but that's just because it's Chicago. Yeah. Right. Whereas at, you know, a really good school, like maybe even Columbia, a 690 is a pretty decent number. Right. It may not be great, but it's really good. So being aware of what these things mean is really important. Right.
Yep. Understanding fit is so key. So parents, as we're moving into the college process, we're about to close it out this year. I wish everyone the best, whatever school accepts you and you accept them as the best fit school, but we can do our research in the very beginning to make sure that we're picking schools that our kids identify with, or they're picking schools they identify with. So on that note, I don't want to keep it much longer. Thanks for having lunch with us, Akil. Thanks for, you know, always spreading the knowledge, and come back and talk to us a little bit more about testing soon. Don't forget about this documentary that he's featured in. The title?
The Test and the Art of Thinking.
The Test and the Art of Thinking. So we'll have that link below. Thanks so much, RIISE, for joining us today. We're out. Happy Black History Month.
Thank you.
All right, Akil. See you later. Bye.
Bye.